Right, today's topic, it might seem very obvious. It might seem like something we should just do naturally. Or maybe you're training to be a counselor or a therapist and you think, well, part of the reason I'm doing that is because I'm really good at listening to people. Unfortunately for you, that is an essential skill, but it's actually not something we're very good at generally. Listening to somebody is a skill that takes presence and groundedness and just being in the moment with that person, not thinking ahead, not thinking back, but just being intently and attentively present with them and listening to what they have to say. And there are so many things in life in general that take us out of that grounded state. And there are a lot of mindful practices that try to bring us back into the here and now. And when we're listening, sometimes there are a lot of things that serve as what we would call a listening block. So it's something that gets in the way of you just being present and being grounded with somebody and listening to them. Really common examples of a listening block would be people's intent and need to rescue somebody or to give advice. So if you imagine somebody has come to you to talk to you about something quite difficult, their pain and their emotional discomfort can serve as a sort of catalyst for you wanting to rescue them, for you wanting to fix something. Thinking particularly of parents, if your child is upset about something, you might set about fixing it, telling them what they can do. Or if somebody says to you, I slept really badly last night, you might jump into giving advice of what time did you go to sleep? What time did you eat? Did you go on your phone before bed? Have you thought about having these kinds of teas? Have you thought about, and that takes the person away from what they were saying, although you mean really well. To them, they might have tried all of those things and they might have just been saying, I slept really badly and I feel tired and I don't have much energy. It's not that they need you to fix that. It's not that they don't know how to sleep well. They're just sharing something with you. And the need to rescue somebody or give advice is something we avoid as therapists. If somebody brings a certain topic to you and they start speaking, and internally your mind is going, oh, they just need to do this. Oh, they just need to do exercise. Or, oh, this happened to me. I know what they should do. You suddenly are no longer present with the person, listening to their experience, trying to step into their world shoes. What's that phrase? Step into their shoes? Yeah. You're no longer trying to empathize and be with them in understanding what it was like for them. You're thinking about the next bit of the conversation and giving advice. As I've said in a previous video, it's not actually helpful and it's not something we do as therapists. There's something in my eye. In order to listen to somebody effectively, we need to put our own thoughts and feelings to the side. Forget about those. We're here with this person and we are listening to what they have to say and we're sharing a present moment with them. So we've got a need to rescue or a need to fix could become a listening block where you are listening to respond rather than listening to understand. And we can consider listening blocks generally as internal blocks and external blocks. So, an internal block would be your own thoughts, feelings, sensations, and experiences in the moment. Let's think of some. So, the internal block of your own personal feelings. Perhaps you're really tired, perhaps you didn't sleep very well, and your concentration span is a lot shorter than usual, so you're finding it really hard to listen. Perhaps what the person is talking about is particularly emotive, or it might be triggering for you, or it might remind you of your own experiences, and then you accidentally stop listening because you're thinking about your own experience. Perhaps something happened before the counselling session and you've been a bit thrown off, or you saw somebody, or something's going on in your mind that is taking you out of the moment because you're still thinking about XYZ. Perhaps there's an email you completely forgot to respond to, but you're listening to the person, but you're actually thinking, after this, I really need to send that email. Don't forget to send that email. Internal feelings could also be feelings of hunger, being distracted by, if you're feeling, I think my tummy's going to rumble, and you stop listening to the person because you're distracted by your own physical sensations. The same could be true if you're feeling thirsty, feeling any sort of pain in your body. It's hard to be attentive and listen to somebody when all of that is going on. Internal listening blocks could also include feeling attracted to the person in front of you, not actually listening what they have to say because you're kind of being sidetracked by what you're looking at. Alternatively, you could be judging the person in front of you. So internally you might be thinking, oh, they've got something between their teeth, or their hair is really greasy, or I don't like their tattoos, or maybe they remind you of somebody. And these kind of elements of how you're experiencing the person can stop you from listening to them. And they can be distracting, but it's then for you to be self-aware and think, oh, I'm not listening. I need to come back to what they're saying and focus on what's being said rather than what I'm looking at. And that can be very difficult, particularly for people who are neurodiverse. Physical sensations can feel a lot louder, so it might be more difficult to listen to the person if you're feeling any kind of bodily sensation, similar to distractions in the room, which brings us on to external blocks to listening. Something that could stop you from really listening to somebody might be noise. Like, let's say I can hear right now, I've got a wash on downstairs, so I can hear my washing machine whirring, and that could take me out of the moment. Roadworks, things like that. Or somebody outside of the therapy room might be talking in the corridor, they might be on the phone, or the walls might be really thin, and you start to tune into that sound rather than the person in front of you who is speaking. An external block to listening could be the person looks a bit different or looks a bit distracting. Maybe even that the person reminds you of somebody, like how they look, you're thinking, where do I know them from? So that's an internal block because it makes you go up into your head rather than listening. But it's also an external block because it's a physical thing that's making you think, what's going on? If your environment is in any way unsafe, that could prevent you from listening to somebody. If the room is particularly hot, you could stop listening because you're distracted by how hot it is. Similarly, if the room is particularly cold, if a person has a particular accent or a particular cadence in how they're speaking, that can serve as a listening block because it can be quite distracting and you might stop listening but really tuning into the pattern of their voice. The main listening block that I hear my trainees at level 2 speak about is the one about rescuing. For people who want to be counselors and therapists, if somebody comes to you to talk about that thing, it can feel like we're not being active enough or not competent enough if we don't offer a really well thought out, insightful, helpful reply. And the trick is to just come back from preparing a response, thinking about what you can say, thinking about what's going to help the person. Just listen to them, let them speak. And when they finish speaking, the best skill, or one of the skills that you could use to respond, is to reflect back what you've heard, to show that you can empathize, to show that you've stepped into their frame of reference. Because hearing something and immediately going, okay, this is what you should do, sometimes it seems that that is what the client wants. But again, in a previous video I've done about giving advice, it's not helpful to give advice, but what is more helpful often is that the person doesn't feel alone and they just have a space to talk. When we feel responsible for giving a reply, could come from a place of insecurity, a feeling that your own worth is in helping others or is in rescuing others or people pleasing. And there might also be something there about how you feel about other people's emotions. Another listening block might be if somebody's really tearful and you can see them getting really emotional in a session. You might go into a state of panic and stop listening because you're thinking, I meant to be helping this person and they're crying. If you can just be confident and comfortable with somebody else having emotions, you don't have to fix them or rescue them, you just have to listen. And there is a lot more to this job as a therapist than listening and listening well, but I think it is a skill that is somewhat overlooked. We conflate listening with doing and fixing, and it's almost like we listen in order to give a solution. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I want to talk about something just to be heard and just to be understood and just to be empathized with and to have my experience heard by another person in my own words and to say, I really hear that. that sounds really difficult. Thank you so much for telling me. How are you feeling about it? There's a really good section in the CBCAB Counselling Skills and Studies textbook, which talks all about these listening blocks. And it's in chapter 5, which is unit 5. Listening blocks is on page 65 onwards. As a little exercise for yourself, thinking about you as a listener, maybe consider if you think you are a good listener after what I've just said, or if there's any things that get in the way or any tendencies you have. Maybe your mind wanders. Maybe you might need to work on your concentration. Maybe you do get really distracted by visual stimuli, whether that's a person's face or what they're wearing or the environment. Whether you are guilty of one of your listening blocks being thinking about what you're going to say. Maybe your own sense of adequacy as a listener when people are confiding in you means that you feel you have to do more than just listen. In a future video, I will talk about the skills we use as therapists, both the verbal ones and the non-verbal ones, because I've spoken a lot about how we listen and how we don't give advice, we don't rescue, we don't fix. But then what are we doing? What are therapists and counsellors actually doing if we're just listening? But there are a lot of techniques that we use in a counselling session to help the other person. I hope that was interesting, and whether you are training to become a therapist or not, I hope these reflections on listening and being a more attentive listener and the value of listening without acting, I hope that helps your relationships and helps you just to stay present and to know that your presence is enough and you don't have to do something or fix something. So I think that's just a bit of a quick one today, but again, I hope it was useful and I will see you next time. Bye.